Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Edmonds, editor-in-chief of For Page and Screen magazine. I'm here today with Dan DeLuca, who is an actor, writer, and filmmaker in the DC metro area. He is best known for portraying Dr. David Parenti in season 4 of HBO's The Wire, opposite Robert Wilson's Bunny Colvin. Dan trained at New York Herbert's Berghof studio and has a master's degree in business from Southeast Missouri State University. Dan has also built a career that spans both in front of and behind the camera. His credits include HBO's Veep and House of Cards, along with feature work such as Rustin, Wonder Woman 1984, The Jester, 2-Minute Heist, Crazy Eights, and the family film Eco Teens Save the World, which he also co-directed and produced. He's a frequent collaborator with the Wire Alum actor and filmmaker Ken Arnold, and co-wrote and stars in the recently released horror western A Town Called Purgatory that we're going to talk about today and I'm excited about. Dan is also a novelist with his first novel, Hag, The Legend of Bloody Mary, now in stores. We'll be putting a link in the bottom of this video, the description of this video, where you can find more about his work. Thank you so much for being here with me.
Absolutely my pleasure.
Hey, I got through that with minimal stumbling.
I'm impressed by my own resume.
Oh, yes, it is impressive. It is impressive. So full disclosure for our listeners, I actually know you from a few years ago. I worked on the set of The Night Watchman. I was a production intern. You starred in that, wrote
Yes.
it as well?
Yes, I'm the writer of it. I wrote it along with Ken Arnold and Jamie Nash. And you may know Jamie Nash from Save the Cat, writes horror. So he wrote that book. In fact, it mentions The Night Watchman in Save the Cat, writes horror. And what else? And so just so you know this, I have penned The Night Watchman 2.
Oh,
So this sequel to The Night Watchman, and it starts 8 years later in this apocalyptic world. So just so you know.
oh, exciting. I can't wait to hear where that goes. Yeah. Full disclosure, I had zero film experience on anything ever during that. So it was trial by fire jumping in, and it was absolutely amazing. So I owe a lot to just being a little production intern on that film set. So
I'm so happy you were there.
yeah,
We needed all the help we could get.
it was an amazing and wild ride. But yeah, so I kind of want to jump in. That's my little film origin story, but I would love to know more about yours. How did you kind of get into this field of work?
Oh, so I started doing stage work as an actor, and I did that for, just like local community theater, that type of thing. And I really thought, well, I'd like to do more of this. And then I just, started doing local commercials and industrial projects, where they do training videos. And then I decided, well, I'd like to actually learn how to do this. So I moved up to New York and I studied acting, like you had mentioned, at the Herbert Berghof studio. While I was up there, I met fellow actors, other producers, that type of thing. And then I got hired on to help write and produce a series for the History Channel called Mouthpiece, Voice of the Accused. And so I did that. And that kind of led to, well, I should start making my own movies and expand this kind of world I'm in and do as much as I possibly can. And I moved back here to the DC area because my wife is here. And so she got tired of me being up in New York. And so I came back and started making short films and then my first feature film. And again, along the way, acting and whatever came my way. And but still with the main focus on writing and producing my own stuff. About 20 years ago, I think it is, maybe 17, 18, I ran into Ken Arnold, who worked with me as producer, writer, co-star on The Night Watchman. And I met him and our good friend Kevin, who was also in both of these films. You probably recognized Kevin from from the film. And we just kind of hit it off, and we kind of built this kind of collaboration into multiple films together. And so, it just kind of grew from local community theater to doing stuff on national TV and movies and stuff like that. So, yeah, but again, my heart is in the independent film world, doing my own kind of quirky, different films, something that's not run of the mill.
Definitely. And I love that. I love that emphasis on your original work, your vision, not just kind of mainstream things are wonderful, but there's a different kind of heart and soul when it comes to independent film. So I love that.
Yeah. And so, and speaking of that, nobody would have ever cast me for the role of Cody Parnham by just looking at me. So, and that's the character in a town called Purgatory. But it was one of those things that I knew I wanted to challenge myself as an actor. I obviously I did all the research behind each one of the characters. They're all based in actual real life characters. His was based on a actual captain in the Confederate Army, and that's why I do my own stuff, because I know that I have, like, whenever I'm hired, it's like you're the journalist, you're the teacher or professor or whatever. Being the cowboy was like something I wanted to kind of stretch and do.
Yeah, and you did it well. You did it well. I was watching and I'm like, I was a little shocked by the accent. I love it. How did you prepare for the accent? I have to just ask that.
So that was, one of those things. First, I had to pick out the right accent, and it is a Georgia accent, and it had to be well, it had to be real. It had to be as good as I possibly could get it. And so, honestly, I listened to multiple different courses on mimicking that accent. And I think what helped me most as a performer was literally writing things out phonetically. So writing my lines out phonetically as they would be said by somebody that had that type of accent, and then studying that as hard as I possibly could. And then it was always kind of in my head, make sure you're Cody. You're not. You need to remember the drawls, the Southern accent, the words, and how they're pronounced, all that stuff. So yeah, it was day one, like first shot on set, I was like, is this gonna work? Is this accent gonna sound right? And fortunately, it's played very well. And a lot of people now that have seen the movie then see me do the same thing, because you knew me before the accent, although I was using an Italian accent at the other time. And I've done a lot of work with different accents. So I've done German accents before, where I've been hired to do that, and the Italian accents. Again, from people that actually know me, British accents, which I think is my worst. But people that know that I really put my heart and soul into performing, and so I will take the time and study. And if you look at me, you probably have a preconceived notion of what part I could fit. But a lot of the people I work with over and over again realized, oh, he can do that. He can, like actors, we always say, yeah, we can do anything, type thing. We can't, but we'd like to think so. But again, it's just hard work, putting in the work for that accent. It's really offset. I would talk the same way for the most part. So, in between takes and stuff like that to keep that accent through and through. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I am terrible at accents. I could never
yeah.
be an actor. So like, that is not, I'm always impressed when people do accents. Now I am curious, since you were both writer for the film and act in the film, which is something you do frequently,
Yes.
um, do you find that because I'm thinking of it in this way where actors will sometimes improvise and adjust the script. Does that make it easier or more difficult for you being the person who is involved in writing the script to handle that?
One of the things I've always liked with my scripts is um, I've told actors, whether I was directing or just a screenwriter, feel free to play with it. Whatever's comfortable for you, because acting is honestly, it comes down to reacting. And so if you don't really know exactly what the other person is going to say, it's better for you because then you can naturally react to it. And so there's a lot of improvising that goes on. And I feel like if you get really good actors, they're going to make your writing seem so much better than you actually wrote because their performances and their ad-libbing will add so much to it. And we're in the day and age where we're shooting on video, so you can just, if you don't like it, don't use it. Use something else. So when I was working on The Wire, I was talking to some of the two of the writers and literally asked them day one, is it okay if I go outside of the lines? And they said, yeah, absolutely, please do. And if there's anything we don't like, we'll cut, and we'll tell you to do it differently, but just feel free. And ever since then, and again, that was what, 15 years ago. Ever since then, I've kept that kind of mentality and encourage other actors to do the same. So I've directed stuff, but there was a feature film that I directed with Corbin Burnson and Shirley Jones, and it was a kids film. And it was, again, one of those things I've told all the actors, so, please feel free, because you never know what you're going to get, and you may get great stuff. In fact, I think some of the best stuff I've ever gotten from actors was stuff that they went ahead and they improvised, themselves. So if it's a good actor, they'll do it, and they'll come up with great stuff, and it will be within character, within context, and that's the important thing, right? It's not so much the words; it's what are you getting across with the words. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I imagine since you have worked with Ken and Kevin before, having that kind of banter and going off of each other probably even adds to it, especially with this film.
Absolutely, absolutely, it does. And working with Ken and Kevin makes my life so much easier because when I'm writing, I know what they can do. I know that they can handle what I'm giving them. So, and I know how generally they're going to interpret it. Whereas if I don't know the actor, I don't know how they're going to interpret it. So I don't know how much in depth do I have to write in order for it to remain close to what I want it to. Because that's one of the problems I've had before is I've had scripts that other people have directed. And then in the end, it turned out like crap. And one of the reasons being they didn't know the script. They didn't know the story. You'd think the director would. And they allowed for changes they made changes that should have never been made. So a lot of the foreshadowing gets lost. A lot of the nuances of the characters gets lost. But I know what Ken and Kevin can do. I know who they are. I know what they do. And so whenever I write a script, any script I write, they're in it, because I already have that muse, those two guys, as well as other people I worked with, like Dan Franco, Donald and some of these other people I've worked with over and over again as well. I know what they can do, and I know I can trust them. So just let them run, and you'll get great stuff.
Absolutely. And when you were specifically for a town called Purgatory, can you tell me a little bit about kind of like the evolution of that? At what point do you rope other people in? At what point do you kind of start
Yeah, yeah.
writing versus planning, that kind of thing?
So this Ken was doing a movie called The Marshal. It also went by Bill Tillman and the Outlaws. And while he was shooting that, he kept saying to me, "Hey Dan, we got to do a horror western. We should do a horror western. We should do a horror western." And so I was like, "Okay, well, let's. We don't want to do a regular. We don't want to do zombies. We don't want to do vampires. We don't want to do. We want to do something." That has not been done, overdone, I should say, and we want to pay homage to whatever we're doing. So that's how it started. It really became. It was COVID. I wanted to write a script that was as contained as possible. That's why the town is empty.
Perfect.
um, and that's how the story started to develop. And then, I did research on Indian lore, and the Skinwalker was one of the ones that kind of fit perfectly where we're at, and how frightening it actually is. And so I built that as the monster. Although this monster has a backstory and there's a reason why it does what it does, and one of those things that Darth Vader even has a reason for doing what he does, and he believes it's the right reason. So the same thing with this Skinwalker. But anyway, so I wrote this film, and we were supposed to do a road trip movie, kind of a buddy movie in Romania. It was kind of a meta Night Watchman thing where they presented their film. Our film, The Night Watchman, won the Silver Stake Award in Romania. So it was kind of a cool idea. Okay, we'll go to Romania, to the film festival to watch The Night Watchman, and realize that the vampires hated the way that we portrayed them. Of course, we didn't realize vampires actually existed, but now we're in Romania. Now they hate us, and now they're trying to kill us. So that was kind of the thing. We got $500,000 grant from Romania. We were ready to go, and that's when COVID kind of hit, and so we all realized that's not going to happen. And while we were talking to our producer over in Austria, who's the one that was working all the Romanian contacts, while we were talking to him, Ken had just, as a joke, said, "Hey, you don't happen to have a Western town by you there in Austria, do you?" And he goes, "I have one 20 minutes from my house, And so we're like, you're joking, right? Next day, we were on a Zoom call, and he showed us what used to be an amusement park, a cowboy, Western themed amusement park. And they would have, they had a train that went around, and they would have like these cowboy and Indian battles and gun fights and whatnot. And there was the saloon, there was the jail, and so it was a full working theme park that had shut down like 11 years prior. So anyway, he showed us this, and at that point, Ken had already talked to some people about funding, and they had seen our previous stuff, they had seen other work we had done, and so he was able to get the funding for it. Then at that point, we're dealing with the Austrian government to get permits to film over in Austria. And it was kind of worked for us because at the time you had to do the COVID protocol stateside, and that's about 30% of your budget at the time. And we just didn't have that. We didn't have that to spare. We didn't have 30% of the budget just to add to that. So Austria was a cheaper deal for us because when we went over there, the state took care of the COVID protocols. So every 2 days they would test you, and or was it 3 days, something like that, 2 or 3 days. Nobody got COVID. There was 40 of us between cast and crew, and nobody got COVID. We were kind of contained on that facility. Nobody could come in or out. at where we shot, that location where we shot. So it was great. It worked out well. But yeah, that's kind of the progression, you know. Paperwork has a lot to do with it. A lot of paperwork. Yeah.
Mhm. That's so interesting. That's such a weird coincidence
Yeah.
that town even exists. Oh my goodness. Yeah, because I remember seeing the credit for like producer in Austria, and I was like, okay, didn't realize it was
Uh-huh.
shot over there. That's amazing.
But not only that, so the guy that was our armor there that took care of the weapons, he literally has a museum in his house of Western stuff, all kind of 1860s, 50s, 40s, 30s to, 1900s. Um, and so we got all our weapons from him. We got the real ones and the fake ones and everything period from him, from the holsters. Now, everything else we kind of did stateside because they don't have Western gear over there,
Mhm.
uh, not as easily as we have here. So here it's easy, literally I was going on Poshmark and, looking at stuff and making sure that, okay, does it have zippers? Because we can't have zippers, what type of buttons does it have? Because we got to have specific buttons, all that detail stuff that you want to make sure you get right.
Mhm.
And our big test of that was when we took it to the Tombstone Film Festival and it won Best Film there. Um, they were all cowboys there. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a film festival. Everybody's there for the Cowboy Film Festival, and they loved it. They thought it was phenomenal. So anyway, that was kind of the origin story. We were supposed to do another film, and we ended up doing this one because it was small and contained.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it worked out. Clearly, it's gone far. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Mhm. You had mentioned the Skinwalker, and I wanted to talk. I am a sucker for practical effects, and the
Yeah.
Skinwalker in that close-up, so creepy. I loved it so much. So I guess I was just kind of wondering what your approach when you're kind of like visualizing actual monstrous creatures. Are you planning practical? Are you planning CGI? Do you have an image in your head? All of the above. I don't know. General thoughts.
Well, all of the above, actually. So, I always liked the sort of man beast kind of antlered kind of thing. It's very much reminiscent of the Wendigo, which is the Northeast American Indian. It's their kind of lore. It's kind of their skinwalker. But there are also the skinwalker of the Navajo, which we use, is a shapeshifter, and sometimes you see it like this, like what we have it. And to me, that was kind of the idea, and then we just had it sketched out and 3D modeled, and until we all kind of agreed, he needs, more fur on the back, he needs longer talons, that type of thing. And our special effects people, had come up with the suit and everything, and we did a mix of CGI and practical,
Mhm.
because we weren't going to have that practical guy jumping off roofs and stuff like that. And some of it looks CGI, and you just gotta kind of like, well, it is what it is. And we only had so much money, and with more money and more time, we could have done so much more. But that said, I'm an independent filmmaker, and I'm grateful the way it came out,
Mhm.
that it did, and it's won a number of awards and gotten a lot of great write-ups and a lot of kudos. So I can't complain. Even though every time I look at it, I say we could have done that better. You know.
No, I feel like that is the plague of every creative person ever. You look back and you're like, if I had just done this other thing, um,
Yeah.
unavoidable 100%. But I think it came out great. I think it looked fantastic.
Thank
Mhm.
you. So I just want to shout out to Kaz Kirkle, the guy who did our music on that. Amazing. He did an amazing job. And then the sound design from the they used to be Studio Known. Now they're the sound department. Kevin Hill and Jamie, those guys there, just brilliant. I mean, these are all local people here in the DMV. Did all our color correction at Digital Cave, so even though it was shot overseas, everything else was done stateside and most of it right here in the area. And we were happy to be able to use people that we used on our other projects because we knew how good they were. So anyway, shout out to those people.
Yeah, no, and that inspires a new question that's not on the list. So perfect. I guess I am curious because I do feel like the indie film scene in general is extremely community based, and I love that. I think that's a fantastic thing. Um, and do you find that you kind of prefer, not prefer, I was gonna say like prefer working within community versus going out and going to new spaces, but that might be a weird way of asking that. Um, but if you want to answer it that way, go ahead while I try to think of
Well,
something else.
when I obviously prefer working with people I've worked with before that I trust,
Mhm.
but I have to say the crew that we had in Austria was a great crew. They're mostly from Romania. There were a couple of Italians, one of our cinematographers. There was Polish. There was obviously Austrian. So we had all kinds of languages there. So at first we had a couple of language barriers along the way, but no, they were great. They were great to work with. But me, if I'm going to set something up, I got to work with people I know because I have worked on so many films, and each film that you work on, there are people that you say, I want to work with that person again. I want to act with that person. Like when first time I met Kevin Jiggets was on a short film that I did with Ken Arnold. I was his guardian angel. He was upset because I'm white and he's black. And that was kind of the whole, like, why did I get stuck with you thing? And working with Kevin on that one short film, first time I'd ever met him was when I stepped on the set. I was like, I want to work with this guy again. And the same thing with Ken, and again, the same thing with those guys over at the sound department. We love working with them because they don't do it for the money. They do it because they love doing it. So obviously they get paid, but they go above and beyond because they love doing this type of work. And those are the people that you gotta find, people that you got to choose. And I feel that locally we have that. And that's the community that I think Ken and I have built when we make our projects, people that just love doing, you could hire somebody from LA or you could hire locally and get somebody that is going to do 110% and it's going to be better than the person from LA. Because they really love it. I mean, that's a whole nother thing. I've worked with crews from Los Angeles, and some of them are great, and I don't think any of them are any better than the crews we have here. In fact, I would much more rely on an East Coast crew than I would a West Coast crew, simply because I think there's a different kind of work. I don't want to say ethic because they work hard too, but idea of what here, somebody on a crew will be happy to do everything outside of their kind of realm. They're not going to pigeonhole themselves into this is all I do. I just do this one thing. But on the East Coast, we're used to doing multiple kind of things. We don't wear one hat. We wear multiple hats, or we help pick up the slack for somebody else. So I see a lot of that. Again, locally, I love working with the union. We were working on Night Watchmen. We had union gaffers and grips, and they were phenomenal. And they just made us better. They didn't just come in and do their job. They came in and said, you know what? Let's tweak this a little bit and it's going to look this much better, So, and when you work with people you worked with over and over again, they're not afraid to come up to you and say, hey, you know what, if you did this, and then you take that into consideration, see if it works, and it may. And again, I say often that making movies is the only art form that is really kind of made by a collaborative effort, and a lot of it, by consensus. You have to really have all the pieces of the puzzle mesh, because no matter what, when you make a film, something wrong or something is going to go wrong, no matter what. That's the way it is. You're dealing with 40 different human beings. You're dealing with 100 different pieces of equipment. You're dealing with weather, locations, whatever it might be. Something will go wrong if you have people like the people that we work with, that we continue to work with over and over again. That if something goes wrong, they'll pick up the slack. They'll make sure it gets done. They'll, because they love doing it. They do it for the art. They really do. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. And that does inspire a better worded question on my end. Um, so I do teach one cinema class here. I work at Arcadia University. I teach one cinema class. And then also just through our magazine, I have the privilege of speaking with a bunch of people who do work professionally in film, but also people who want to. A lot of screenwriters, starting script writers.
Mhm.
And I know, like for me, someone who did just kind of jump in, knowing absolutely no one on the Night Watchman. Granted, I found out the person who sent me your direction is actually was friends with one of the producers. He didn't tell me that at a time. So, like, thanks for that. Um, but I do actually appreciate that. It was good to like cold email, Facebook messaging people. It was good experience. But anyway, so for those people who have interest, love the art, but don't have the connections, how do you
Hmm.
recommend they try to get into that community?
So the same way that you did and I did, which is just start volunteering on stuff.
Mhm.
Get your foot in the door, meet people. If you have a good work ethic, people will call you back. You'll start getting paid. You'll start to make a group of friends. I do caveat. I used to teach acting classes when I had time, and I would caveat it with the actors that would come in and say, if you really want to do this, you need to have the mindset of, I would act in my basement with my friends, even if I never got another acting job, or even if I didn't, because you have to love this type of work, and you'll never go wrong. If you love the work, you'll just do the work no matter what. But if you're here for the fame and for the pay, it's not the right place. It's not the right place. And there's so many other things you could do to get paid quicker, better, and you don't have to deal with all the what's the word I'm looking for? All of the rejection, as an actor or even as a director or whatever, and you're trying to get jobs, that type of thing. So yeah, volunteer on everything, and that's what when I first started acting, I would audition for everything, every single thing that was out there. I did a lot of stuff over at American University, Howard University, as an actor, Howard University, and met people there that eventually graduated. We remained friends, and we did stuff together after, we were both out, or years after that had happened. So yeah, I mean, go in, volunteer, do free stuff if you have to. If you're just looking to get paid, the SAG day rate, good luck with that. That's not going to happen on most projects because they're not union. So yeah, volunteering, I think, is the number one way. And you start to get in those circles. Not only that, like for instance, there's a filmmaker meetup in Frederick, Maryland, that they do. I believe it's once a month on a Thursday at Vanish Hall up there. It's part of Vanish Hall and um, Il Forno Pizzeria. So the people that own the pizzeria are big supporters of independent film. And so they started this kind of, meetup. So you just go there and you meet other filmmakers. I have met some that I have helped out just recently in this last year that I just met there, and got them in contact with people and worked with them myself. And yeah, do these meetups, do the free stuff, just meet other people in the industry. Even if we're at the bottom of the rung when we start out, people work their way up, just work with everybody and be nice, be nice. Because there are people, I'll give you a quick story. I did a film, my first feature film years ago, that I wrote and directed. I did that film, and the producer, after we had done that film, said, "Hey, my daughter's up in New York. I want to do this other short film with this guy." In the interim, I was working on A Beautiful Mind, and I was doing literally extra work, even though I was there for most of the film, and it was a small crew of us. And one of the PAs there was one of the worst people I'd ever worked with. And he was yelling at people and stuff like that on set, and, yelling at you saw the way we were on Night Watchman. We were just happy to have everybody there. But he was yelling at people, and it was really not a great experience when he was there. I have to say, Russell Crowe was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person to work with. He was just brilliant. And anyway, so this woman who produced my first film, and her daughter was doing this other short film and wanted me to work on it. And this guy, this PA, was going to be the director of it. And I said, no, I'm not going to work with that guy. And I saw what he did to other people. I wouldn't work with him because of that. So be nice. Just be nice to people. There's no reason not to be nice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I will say, I had an amazing experience working with you and working with everyone on the Night Watchman. You made it so much less intimidating, because I was very, very worried going in. I'm still incredibly awkward and introverted, but like, especially then, I was like 18, freshman in college. I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
We didn't know what was going on either. So
amazing. But yeah, attitude, I think, can really, really help in a lot of situations. Even people I've worked with since, I've kind of had similar moments where I'm like, yeah, you do great work, but I don't want to work with you.
yeah. I worked with actresses like that.
Mm-hmm.
Actors, I've worked with, and you just never work with them again, because I like the art. I like doing this stuff, but I also want to have fun, and I want the people working with me to have fun, because that just makes things easier, right? If you're having a good time, I've been on a lot of sets that were extremely stressful. Well, not my sets, but other sets that I've been on, because the hierarchy was kind of assholes. And again, some of the actors and stuff like that, I'd never want to work with them again. Now, when I worked on The Wire, never had any of that. Never. From top to bottom, those people were great. They were respectful. They were fun. They were having a good time and doing hard work.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be, that even up on the highest levels, it can be that. There's no reason why it shouldn't. And yeah, that was the best thing, the most fun I ever worked on, as far as being hired on somebody else's set was The Wire.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Now, kind of, this question is related in my mind. It might not seem like it is,
No, I
but
don't have an OnlyFans, if that's what you're asking.
it is not
I'm
at
setting
all.
that up
So,
right now.
no, this is I was gonna say this is a rated G podcast, but it's not.
Oh, all right.
But no,
You can bleep that.
no, it's really not. I was kidding. But yeah, no, I was wondering because one thing I've kind of seen in terms of like community and filmmaking community
Mhm.
is also finding people and meeting people at film festivals. And I've only gone to a few, and I've only had films like place and get awards at a few personally, but I know you have many times, especially with a town called Purgatory, you mentioned a few. Do you find that film festivals can be kind of a space for that? Is that like an additional benefit on top of just the accolades of them?
Yeah, I was actually just having this conversation today with somebody I did a short film with that she directed. It's called A Disproportionate Man. And it's Dan Franco's in it with me. He was in The Night Watchman with me. It's a wonderful actress. Ami is in the film, so it's a really cool film, and she did a great job. The director, we were talking about she wants to put it into festivals, and that was one of the things that I had mentioned. It's a great place to meet other filmmakers, you know, and if they love your work, they may say, hey, do you want to collaborate? That type of thing. We've Ken and I run into a lot of people that want to collaborate. And generally, we already have kind of a list of things that we want to do. So we don't often kind of go off that track. We have a list, I have a stack of scripts like this big that I've written, that I'd like to chisel away at a couple of them at least. But yeah, there's not an event that we don't go to that somebody doesn't come up and say, hey, I love your stuff. Are you interested in working with me or collaborating and stuff like that? If it was somebody that had a ton of money and said, I got the money right here, boom, I would say, yeah, okay, let's do it. But it's generally people that are on the same level we are and trying to get their projects made. And again, I do this because I love doing it. And what I love doing is my work, my writing, with at least, a couple of my friends, and expanding from there. But, I have, where did I meet Jamie at? I don't remember Jamie. I met him through Ken, but I'm not sure. I'm sure that along the way, the people that we actually work with now, we've met at festivals, or auditions or something like that in this local area, or meet and greets. And that's how it's done. But definitely, festivals are great places to meet other people. When I was at Tombstone and did the Tombstone Film Festival, somebody had come up to me after and said, "Hey, I'd love you to. I'm doing a thing on Salvador Dali, and I'd like you to be the lead, to play him." After seeing the film, I was flattered, but honestly not interested. So it happens. It does happen. Now, we met other people there that, I don't know if you know who Michael Cudlitz is, but he is on The Walking Dead. He was in Band of Brothers. He is one of the better known actors in that kind of upper tier, not A-list, but he's always working and a wonderful actor. We met him while we were at Tombstone, and we just kind of hit it off, and he loved our film, and we kind of hung out, him and Ken, for 3 days. And he literally said, "I love your work. Here's my email address. I'll do 2 days on anything you do. Just let me know, and we'll make it happen. 2 days on one of your projects. Just going to the film festival, showing our wares. So it can happen. It does happen."
Yeah, that's amazing. Um, on kind of the flip side, though, I know there are lots of like just like browsing film festival websites. A lot of them are just kind of they want your money and they'll say put you on a website for like a week. So how do you go through and decide and to have that like discretion? We are submitting to these, we are not doing these.
I think it all started with like probably the first film that Ken and I had done together. I had done some previous, but that first film we had done together, um, we probably blasted it out to 40 different festivals or something like that, and then realized that on the back end there were some that actually did things for us, and got us a lot of attention and got us a lot of buzz, write-ups and stuff like that. And others that were just basically like you said, you walk in, there's four people in the theater, and they took your money and you flew out to, Wisconsin for the festival. So basically through a trial and error, um, we figured, okay, these are certain festivals we want to be in for whatever reason. Tombstone, because it was a Western. It's a Western. We wanted Tombstone. The Night Watchman, we hit other like creature feature and those type of festivals, and then just some of the bigger name ones that we've been lucky enough to get into, like Fantasia, and the Garden State Film Festival. Those ones will actually have a lot more people seeing your stuff, and you'll get a lot more buzz about your projects, and maybe even some people actually get deals out of that, going to a festival. I've never gotten a deal going to a festival, but that's who knows, maybe someday. Um, yeah, so definitely festivals are a good place, but research it. If you know anybody that's submitted their stuff, do they look they're kind of like half-ass? What is their track record? And a lot of these festivals, you can see how long they've been about, what other films they've had in there. Is anything you've heard of? Is it anything that looks like it's worth watching? So, I mean, there are, and not all of them cost money. There are a handful that don't. There's the SCAD Film Festival, which is the Savannah College of Art and Design, where my son goes. And that's a free festival to enter, but they have Hollywood stars that come and present those films. They obviously they pick the best ones. It's an art school, but those type are the type to get in. Look and see who's presenting, who's going to be the guest of honor. If you don't know who they are, then chances are it's put your money into the ones that are a little bit more prestigious. On the other hand, that said, if you're doing a film and let's say you're filming it here in the DC area, well, put it in some of the local ones so your friends can see it and the crew can see it, and you get it up on a big screen, and it only costs you $40 to enter or whatever it was. So that's worth doing as well, I think. But don't send it again to Wyoming, to some tiny little festival that they're just taking your money, or overseas, or there's all these. Never put your stuff in an online festival. And the reason I say that is because everything that we have put out there has been pirated. And that's a perfect place to pirate, is an online festival. It's going to get pirated no matter what, but at least you can slow it down a little bit. I mean, a town called Purgatory has been out, what, a month? And it's already been pirated. And it's only on pay right now. It's only on VOD, pay-per-view. But it's already been pirated, and so we have to go and take those things down and contact them, and it's a mess because honestly our laws really suck when it comes to that. It doesn't have much teeth, but anyway, that's another story. I could go on and on for that, but
Yeah, no, that's I wish there was a way to stop that, especially for like indie filmmakers, because I don't know, there's a very big difference in my mind if you're pirating
right.
like a massive Hollywood film and
My
yeah.
film was literally right up there next to Bone Temple. Right, they're both right next to each other, both pirated on this site. Sony's film and my tiny little film. Yeah.
It's
So
wild. Could you talk a little bit about the process of getting distribution for the film? You said there's always a very small chance of getting deals at festivals, but like, how
Right.
do you actually go about getting distribution for your films?
So I will tell you this right up. You can get distribution. Anybody can get distribution for anything they make. The trick is good distribution. So it becomes a matter of trying to find, it would be great if we could go to, I don't know, a Sony Pictures and say, hey, look at our film, but they won't. That's just not the way it works. Um, so what you really end up trying to look for is a good rep, a good sales rep that has a good track record that could get you in front of at least some people that are up on the higher tier. Now, even some of the higher tier ones, so there's the majors, there's the mini majors, and then there's kind of everybody else. And we're kind of, done stuff with Lionsgate, Gravitas, they're up at the thing, and some have had success and some have had not. My stuff, anyway. Um, so really research who you're putting your film with, the distributor that you're getting, because you will have people send you kind of, hey, we want you to distribute. There's a really good Facebook family page that is movie distributors to stay away from. So that's where basically people will say, hey, have you had any experience with these people, this distributor or that distributor? And people will say, yeah, this is what happened to me, or this is what their contract say. Unfortunately, none of this stuff is in our favor. The deal that we negotiated with Uncorked right now has probably been the best one that we've ever negotiated, because they are actually putting our stuff out there and doing a great job at it, and they're advertising, and they're getting us reviews and stuff like that. So they gave us money up front, and this is like really doesn't happen that often anymore. You don't really get money up front anymore. You used to, but not anymore. There's just so many distributors out there, but most of them are just they're taking your film, they're putting it in a binder with 100 other films or 1,000 other films, and they're either going to some of these like film markets and just like, here, go through my book. Is there a film you want? And then they charge you, you know, we're charging you because we had to go to this festival, and you're charged this amount. And yeah, it's in the contract only so much, but you really got to read those contracts really closely. You can get distribution no matter what. I think the best thing to do is really get on the Facebook group there, movie distributors to stay away from, and look, if you have a question, look there, and even look at self-distribution at some point. There are aggregators that you can self-distribute to. We would have done that with this film, but there was just too many things going on, and we couldn't. And in the end, too many pieces of the puzzle that we had to wait to get together. But again, distribution is easy to find. You just call a distributor up, and they will contact you and send you one of their contracts. There are ones like you could go to online. Some of them have forms for you to fill out, and then you put your screener in. So just look for distributors that are looking for films, and you'll find some. What type of deal will you get? I mean, that's what you got to look at. That's the thing you really got to look at. There's a ton of them that will actually just fill out the form, submit your film, and they'll tell you whether they want to write you a contract or not. And I've done that before too. And then the contracts come back and you look at it and you're like, yeah, I'm not interested. 35% plus, so much costs so much that every time they bring it somewhere, all that stuff, it's not happening. We can't do that and turn a profit for our investors. So, and along with that, hopefully someday, the bigger distributors will come to me and Ken and say, "Hey, we like your project," you know, or the mini major, something like that. That would be great. Again, I've worked with Lionsgate and on one of my films, and they did a great job. But was it the best? No, probably not. But yeah, distribution's easy. You just call them up, let them look at your project, and they'll say yay or nay. You're not going to get into the big boys or even the mini majors. Those you have to go through a lawyer or an entertainment agent, that type of thing there. You'll have to go through them. They won't, for legal reasons, they won't just look at people's stuff. They're afraid they'll get sued, they stole my idea, blah, 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 that type of thing. So they don't do that. So yeah, distribution for independent film is pretty easy.
Makes sense, makes sense. Cool. So really quickly, because I feel like I've asked questions about every stage of the process now. I just wanted to know, is there anything more specific to the film or in general that you want to talk about?
I think as the thing I'm most proud of in this film, I should say, aside from the actors' work, I mean, they did a brilliant job, and again, all the crew and stuff like that, was when I wrote the script, I wanted it to be true to the era. I wanted everything to look like it was right out of the 1860s. I wanted the town to look like that. I wanted the costumes, all that stuff, look like it came out of that time period. And so when I watch the film and other people watch the film, they don't get distracted. Why is there a phone booth in the 1860s? So there was one in our town, actually. We were there. So yeah, I think that's one of the things about the film that I when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. We were able to make that feel like you're really there. There are a couple of things in there that I know that shouldn't be in there, and Ken always harasses me about it because I always tell him, yeah, that shouldn't be in there. That didn't come about until 30 years later type thing. But that's just kind of me being nitpicky but yeah. And again, the characters, all the three main characters anyway, and actually the bad guy in the film. So the Reno gang is a real gang. They were the first ones to rob a train in the United States. I wanted to kind of use real historical events. So again, my character is based on a real character who, after the Civil War, basically said, what we did, that was wrong. And so I wanted my character to be able to have that and base it on a real character, but also the losses he incurred. And that comes out, right? Nicodemus is also based on a real character who was a freed slave that lived with the Navajos and would tell these tall tales as the years went on. And he was well known for that. Ken's character is based on one of the Pinkertons that actually caught the Reno gang. Obviously not, exactly those people, but I had enough to work with that, working with what was real. Location, I mean, not location, but actual props and stuff like that, and characters just gave so much more to that film. The Skinwalker lore, it's all right straight out of this is the Indian lore. This is why they become skinwalkers. This is how they go about doing. I didn't take any liberties with that. I'm sure there were liberties with the way it looked or whatever, but we tried to be as true as possible to the time period and the lore and the characters, and I think that made a huge difference in the film. So that's what I would want people to know about the film.
Yeah, definitely. I know historical fiction period pieces in general can be so taxing with research and all of those little details. So it's impressive how much you put in and how much focus you dedicated to it. So I don't have a question there. I just think it's impressive.
Yeah.
Awesome. Absolutely. So I think that is the end of my list that I've
All
planned.
right.
Also just the conversation. The additional pop-up questions. I and interviews asking people if they have advice for future filmmakers. I feel like we covered that a little bit already, though. Um,
Volunteer. That's my advice. Volunteer. Yeah,
yeah.
do everything, and then you'll find your people.
hmm hmm Yeah, I love that. I love that. So I guess um my end question for you, since we're doing slightly
Yes.
different end question, is do you have any upcoming projects you want to pitch to our audience, to yell out
Yeah.
into the world?
So obviously, we just released a town called Purgatory. So if you get a chance, go see it. If you like Western, you like creature features, or if you like thrillers, I think it's a good film. It covers a lot of that stuff. And you can find it on Amazon, Apple TV, Fandango, Google Play, the regular places. Um, and my book, Hag, I will pitch that since literally I got to the point where I was writing so many screenplays that I wanted these stories to get out. And so I took one of them and made it into a book. And it's a detective thriller, but a supernatural bent based on kind of a retelling of Bloody Mary. And then again, it goes back into history, where she came from, why she's called Bloody Mary, who she was, all that type of stuff. So it's a detective story, if you like detective stories and horror, but Hag, The Legend of Bloody Mary. And other than that, I had mentioned you get a chance to see the short film, The Disproportionate Man. It should be starting to hit festivals the next couple of months. And Ken and I are working on The Night Watchman too. So it has been penned. We are talking to people. And hopefully that will be what we're doing at the end of the year. And you'll come on and you'll volunteer again, but this
I
time it's
would.
paid. And you'll get to be in the sequel.
I would 100% volunteer again. I am up near Philadelphia right now, but it's not too far. It's not too far from Maryland. That's fine.
Who knows? It may be filming up in Jersey. I don't know. You
Even
know,
even better, even
it's
better.
where the tax incentives, come out. And that'll be the number one thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Return on investment. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure all of our listeners are looking forward to it. Thank you so much for talking with me today. It's been great to catch up, great to chat.
Absolutely my pleasure. And it's good to see you again after so long.
Yes, good to see you too.